You finally got it. The promotion, the degree, the relationship, the specific thing you spent years genuinely working toward. And underneath the real, genuine happiness sits something considerably stranger, an unexpected grief, a quiet sense of loss you did not anticipate and cannot fully explain. Carl Jung's understanding of identity built around pursuit itself offers a precise explanation for why arriving somewhere you genuinely wanted to be can produce this specific, confusing sadness alongside the actual celebration. Jung believed that a person pursuing a genuine, significant goal over an extended period does not simply want the goal itself. They gradually build a considerable part of their actual felt identity around the pursuit, the specific daily structure it provides, the particular story it lets them tell about who they are and where they are heading, the genuine sense of forward motion and purpose the ongoing chase itself supplies. This identity, built patiently over years of genuine effort, does not simply transfer intact the moment the goal is actually reached. It requires a real, sometimes disorienting reorganization, since the person who was becoming someone through years of pursuit must now become someone slightly different, someone who has arrived rather than someone still reaching. This explains why the specific loss so often catches people by surprise, since nobody wants you in advance, that finally getting the thing you wanted might require giving up a version of yourself that the wanting itself had quietly been building the entire time. The genuine sadness is not really about the achievement disappointing you. It is about a real, felt identity built around pursuit, needing to reorganize itself now that the pursuit has actually successfully ended. Here is what makes this understanding genuinely useful rather than simply an explanation for a confusing emotional moment. This specific grief is often mistaken by the person actually experiencing it as evidence that the achievement was not genuinely wanted, or that something is wrong with their capacity for happiness, when it actually reflects something considerably more ordinary, the real, felt cost of a genuine identity transition that any significant extended pursuit eventually requires once it actually successfully concludes. This also explains why some people, having reached a genuinely significant goal, quickly set an entirely new one before genuinely settling into the achievement they just reached, since immediately reaching for the next pursuit offers a considerably faster, more familiar way to avoid this specific disorienting reorganization altogether. The old, pursuit-based identity simply continues uninterrupted, chasing a new target before it ever has to actually sit with having arrived at the previous one. And while this pattern can look from the outside like admirable ambition, it can also function as a genuine avoidance of the real necessary work of actually integrating each achievement fully before moving on to the next. Here is what actually helps in working with this pattern directly. It helps to name this specific grief honestly rather than dismissing it or feeling guilty for experiencing something other than pure simple joy, since Jung's understanding suggests this feeling is not actually a sign of ingratitude. It is the genuine felt cost of a real identity transition, deserving honest acknowledgement rather than continued confusion about why arrival does not feel entirely, simply good. There is a second thing worth practicing directly. It helps to deliberately, consciously build the next version of your identity around the actual achievement, asking honestly who you are now that you have arrived, rather than immediately reaching for a new pursuit before this specific question has ever actually been considered. This deliberate reflection, uncomfortable as it can feel, is precisely the work Jung believed genuine individuation requires at every significant transition rather than only during the more obviously difficult ones. There is a third, genuinely important piece worth naming. This pattern connects directly to Jung's broader understanding that psychological development never actually completes at a single, final destination. Each genuine achievement is not simply an ending. It is also simultaneously the beginning of a new stage requiring its own real, considered adjustment, and understanding this in advance can help soften the surprise when the next genuinely significant achievement produces this exact same disorienting quality, all over again. If you recognize this specific, unexpected grief after achieving something you genuinely wanted, hear this clearly. This was never evidence that you did not actually want it, or that something is wrong with your capacity for happiness. According to Jung's understanding, it very often reflects the genuine, felt cost of a real identity, reorganization, one that every significant extended pursuit eventually requires, once it actually successfully concludes. Think honestly about the last significant goal you achieved after genuine, extended pursuit, and consider whether you actually allowed yourself the real work of reorganizing your identity around having arrived, or whether you simply reached for the next pursuit before ever fully considering the question. Write below the single word for what you suspect you actually lost or had to release in order to finally arrive at that specific achievement. Naming it honestly is the real and practical way you begin the genuine necessary work Jung believed every significant arrival actually requires, rather than continuing to mistake this specific grief for evidence that something is wrong with how you feel. There is a final piece worth naming, since it offers real practical reassurance beyond simply managing this one specific transition. Learning to recognize this pattern once tends to make it considerably less disorienting the next time a significant goal is finally reached, since you now have a genuine framework for understanding the grief, rather than being caught entirely by surprise, wondering what might be wrong with your own capacity for joy. Because feeling a strange sense of loss after finally achieving something you wanted for years was never, according to Carl Jung's understanding, evidence of ingratitude or a genuine inability to feel happy. It was a real felt cost of an identity built around pursuit, finally needing to reorganize itself around arrival, and naming this honestly was always the real, practical path toward actually integrating what you worked so hard and for so long to finally reach.